Hello there, welcome back. Today in this live stream, again, I'm going to do 3 different live streams. I'm going to do a subject, I'll stop, we'll do another subject, I'll stop, and we'll do a third one. That's kind of the way I'm planning to do it for now. Hopefully, this camera setup's a bit better than it was last few weeks, where I've got a new webcam, and I've still been figuring out how to sort it and how to get it all working properly, and so it streams well and all the rest of it. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I've got a different setup now, so I'm hoping this will be it. So the films today we're covering as They Might Be Giants, which is trying to make sure I got this one right. It's a very wide angle lens, which means everything gets to starting, it's easy to pop in and out of shot. So it's a bit more difficult than it was before. I've got 2 films from the Sonny Chiba collection, which I'll get to later. And I've got 2 early John Woo films from America. You know, Hard Target and Broken Arrow. The 2 ones he did when he first went to America, as he was still trying to work it out. So I hope you enjoy all these subjects. They're still not quite as highbrow as some of the ones I usually do, but I'm slowly just getting back into the way of doing things. And I thought that They Might Be Giants was a bit more unusual than I normally start a week with, but I thought it was actually really worth bringing up. So this was something that was released by Indicator, as you can see, written by Anthony Harvey, who used to be Kubrick's editor in the 60s. And he then moved on to be a director, and he's been very successful in the early parts. He did Lion in Winter, which was a film written by James Goldman, who also wrote this one. So they did a good collaboration. James Goldman is the brother of William Goldman, his older brother. He had less big, successful films than William Goldman, but for me, I have to have the more interesting figure, you know. But it's a different dynamic. I mean, James Goldman wrote Robin and Marion, which is, for me, is much better than anything William Goldman ever wrote. So, and this They May Be Giants is pretty much excellent as well. I mean, it's just the guy knew what he was up to. I have the Lion in Winter, but I haven't watched it yet, but I do have it. So that's now on my to-watch list because of this film. So Indicator released this, and just the whole idea of a guy who thinks he's Sherlock Holmes was enough for me, especially when it was George C. Scott playing a guy who thinks he's Sherlock Holmes in 1970s New York. Joanne Woodward was always a good actress, so it was always good to see her in her leading role. It was produced by Paul Newman, who's her husband, and in the 70s, he kind of tried to give her some actual showcases because she's an actress who was not given much by Hollywood. She wasn't the idea of a big star, so he had to direct her a lot to actually give her good parts. And George C. Scott was a big name at that time. He had just done Patton. It was not long around the time he did New Centurion, so he was at a peak. He was doing a lot of stuff. So when George C. Scott, pretty much from the late 50s, early 60s, all the way through to the mid 70s, was pretty much on fire. After that, he moved into more supporting parts and TV work. And he got no lead part like Exorcist 3, but the basically had about 15, 20 years where he was a leading man of a certain type of movie, you know. So you had like real standouts, like he was in The Hustler, he was in Nightmare Murder early on, Dr. Strangelove, there was Patton, there was Petulia with Richard Lester directing. There was New Centurions. He would do a lot of stuff. He was always one of those actors who was in a lot of things. He did Hardcore Paul Schrader. You know, he directed 1 or 2 films. He was doing lots of stuff. And that's just the stuff top of my head. He was always one of those interesting actors. He was doing a lot of stuff on stage with Mike Nichols. He did Day of the Dolphin with Mike Nichols, which I've covered. It's a very weird film. So he was kind of peaking here. So he did this weird film, but didn't do very well. This film did not do well at all. I don't think people didn't sell it, didn't know what it was about. It was just like, this is weird. I think this film idea would probably do better now than it did then, because we know the genre better now. This is starting genre. But this is a charming film, and I get the feeling that this is the film that Fisher King, Jerry Gilliam made. This is a film he was trying to make with the whimsy in the New York streets and the crazies in New York. And what's the difference between sanity and madness? But this is a better version of that film. Fisher King's always a film that is a bit too cloying for me. It always feels like it's not quite as smart as it wants to be. And it's trying too hard. And it relies a lot on Jeff Bridges to keep it grounded. This film is much more balanced. Like it's not relying on a mismatched couple. It's a couple that are one's relatively sane, one's obviously insane, but they're balanced though. Like you can see the fealties of the person who's sane, and you can see the person who's insane has some logic to what they're doing. It's just a logic that's kind of mad at the same time. And the whole idea is you're following him. Who he was a lawyer. He was a lawyer who did a lot of good. His wife died, and he just went mad. He's a rich guy. He's a very rich guy who has a lot of money, so he can actually go mad and then not be a problem because he has the money. There's a subplot in it that isn't really followed up on too much, as his brother wants his money, wants to get him signed over as insane so he can become the person who runs these estates so he can have access to the money. His brother has problems with money as well, so he has reasons for wanting to get hold of that money. But he has to get Joanne Woodward's character, who's a doctor in a mental asylum, to sign off to say, yeah, this guy is absolutely nuts. He should be like in a mental ward and getting a lot of help. Unfortunately for him, Joanne Woodward's character is a lot more eccentric. She's a lot kinder and she's trying to work out the problem these people are having. She's not trying to. She's being a doctor, but she's trying to figure out like there's a logic here and what's the logic to the problem. And it starts out trying to talk to a guy who's not going to speak. He's not speaking. And you see her approach as much kinder than a typical doctor would expect. Then when George C. Scott's brought in, you realise he charms everybody. Everybody likes George C. Scott as Sherlock Holmes. They know he's mad, but he's so charming and he's so happy doing it. It's like, just let him be. He's got the money to do it. Just let him go do what he wants to do. He's happy. He's probably in a nervous breakdown, but he's happy. So it would have been fine if it wasn't for his brother who's trying to get the money. And basically, they're trying to get John Woodward to actually sign off that he's mad and get him in an institution. The institution she works at. Now, her surname is Watson. Also, obviously, that makes him think that she should be his partner in crime. And basically, you follow her trying to work out what he's about. So she goes to his house to talk to him about more detail, and he ends up psychoanalyzing her. Then he starts to get some clues around the city. So they go through all these little stories in the city, these little episodes of events where they run into all these other strange people who may seem normal on the outside, but they actually have eccentric side as well. And it's about the idea of lots of people live in the city have the kind of exterior you expect, but there's a lot more going on in their heads than you're ever going to have access to. So for what seemed like a grey, depressing city that's very kind of scurrilous and you feel there's crimes happening all over, there's a lot of like whimsy, there's a lots of fantasization going on, and there's lots of people living their lives in the way they find strange. But they're not harming anybody, so what's the problem? And it's that kind of thing that the film is more about than it is about trying to cure anybody. It's like, yes, George C. Scott's character has fallen into delusions that were probably always there. He's probably a lawyer because he loved the logic of the law, and he probably had a kind of Sherlock Holmes interest before he went mad. But it's always there. He's just the most extreme version. The fact that he's committed to it means people warm to him a lot more than they do to the more insane characters. And in the commentary Kim Newman did with Barry Forshaw, the most they say is like, isn't it better for him? Isn't he more interested in Sherlock Holmes as he ever would be as his normal character before he went mad? There is that element to it. But the main thrust of the film is the relationship between Joanne Woodward's character and George C. Scott's character. As she starts trying to analyze and trying to work out what's his problem. And then as the film goes on, she kind of gets sucked into his world, the madness of his world, and finds things there that attracts her too. That she's not quite as sane as she probably thinks she is. And she starts to see the joy in letting herself go and be a bit mad. Like, Josh C. Scott instantly finds out that what the problem is the guy won't speak because they're calling him by the wrong name and he wants to be called by a silent film star. And it's like, because he understands that psychology. And he is very observant, it seems. But we never actually find out whether his observations are true or not because we never get them confirmed. But you get suspicions that some of them are because this character was a lawyer. He would be used to looking at people and saying, this is what they're about, that's what about. There's a lot of instincts there as a lawyer he would have. And he probably extrapolates from them when he thinks he's Sherlock Holmes. And like, what type of people is this? What type of person is this? And so his deductions make some sort of sense. But we never get told whether they're true or not, but you do get a sense that there may be some truth to some of them. So it's kind of a half and half thing you get. And as the film goes on, you realize more and more of his schemes, more and more of his clues he's trying to solve, discover and figure out are pretty mad. But he's so enthusiastic with it. And his inspiration of what he's doing inspires lots of other people. See, he runs into this old couple who are, I've got a garden up in this apartment block. They haven't left their house for 30 years. You have gangsters chasing after them because the brother owes them money. And then if Scott actually doesn't go mad, they don't get the money. They've got all these other characters running through this girl who's worried about her lawyer boyfriend who didn't pass the bar exam, played by young Kitty Wynn, who was an exorcist, and Panic in Neil Park. So there's lots of faces. You have a young Emmett Walsh in it as a binman. There's F. Mabel Abraham turns up as a guy who's in this old cinema, and there's a bunch of other old character actors who are in the cinema, and basically they all hang out in the cinema that's actually been upgraded to do other kind of movies now, and they've been left destitute because that's where their lives were. That's why I do these little communities in cinemas or communities in different areas of the city that join together because they don't judge each other, and it's just a sense of we're getting by. And that becomes a charm of the film. It's like it's with people who don't have the ambitions of certain other people. They're not ambitious in the traditional sense. They're just trying to enjoy themselves in their lives. They don't have to be like massively successful lives. They just want to enjoy themselves and do what they do. And that's a charm of the film is it's like just accepting the fact you don't need to actually be someone who's trying to change the world. You can just be either your fantasy or who you are and just exist and don't hurt other people. Just exist and try and help where you can. And that becomes a charm as Joanne Woodward's character is always trying to do that, but she can embraces it more as the insanity. She's more than insanity's logic. And in the end, it is ambiguous. You don't really know how she's going completely mad or has she just appreciating something more than what she originally figured out. And this is like a learning process for her to help her in her job later on. Or has she gone completely mad? You don't know. The ending is ambiguous. You can read it either way. But she's had to learn to embrace it. Like, not everything that's mental illness is a sign of weakness or a sign of something that has to be stopped. It's much more like try and figure out the logic of it all and what the problem is and why they're behaving that way. And you can maybe help them be quite treat them on the level they're dealing with the problems. And it's like expanding their mind and something else. And the great thing with the film is the performances. The performances are terrific. The film is actually geared towards the actors in the sense the direction is, distant from the actors in the sense of it lets them like go around the sets and actually bring life to the scene through actions and interactions rather than doing flashy shots. It allows the scenes to wander off, maybe some directors may object to. It's a very vitally filmed, but it's not flat or anything. It's actually shot very nicely, and you can enjoy the way the film's been designed. You can enjoy the way the film is showing the story, but it lets the craziness play out because that's the theme of the film. So there's lots of incidents that might not go anywhere plot wise, but the fact they don't go anywhere plot wise is part of the charm of the film. It's not like it's something that makes the film better rather than worse. Is the fact that it's not very usual. It's a very unusual film, and it ignores certain ideas that you expect, like have it make sense at the end. It doesn't. It just does its thing, and at the end, all the clues have been followed turn out to be not exactly what a normal film would do. It doesn't matter because the actors are so good and they're also enjoyable. You can tell everyone's enjoying themselves in this film. I mean, you don't get that from George C. Scott all the time in a film, but here you get a sense of he's having fun, he's enjoying what he's doing in this film, and it's infectious. He's charming in a way that he doesn't get to be very often. Joanne Woodward is pretty much the person who's anchoring the film, but she's great. She's really good. She plays like this tomboyish character who's a shrink, and she's dealing with idiots a lot, but she gets charmed by the whole thing of she's a workaholic for this field she's passionate for, but she doesn't really have life outside of that. And it's just her reactions, her very normal reactions to the craziness of her actually embracing the world she's actually in rather than having a distance from it, is the kind of the arc of the film, ultimately. That's what the film's actually about, rather than the George C. Scott character is actually very much the same from start to finish. You get a few scenes where you suggest, like, some part of him knows this is a fantasy, but he's not willing to come out of it. But he's a constant that everyone else bounces off. He's a straight man in the film, basically. But he's an eccentric straight man. But he is the guy who doesn't change, but everyone bounces off him. The interest is a reaction to him by everyone else and what it means to these other characters. There's some great chemistry with him and tons of the little supporting actors. Like, well, one of his oldest friends who helps him research wishes he could be Scarlet Pimpernel, and that comes out later on. That's wonderful. There's a crazy sequence in a supermarket that you either love or hate. I really enjoyed it. It's very strange and very weird, and it just shows how crazy the whole world actually is. And the end's wonderful, very ambiguous, and it's just perfect for what the film needs. So this is just a really fun film. It's really well made. You get two different cuts: the British cut and the American cut. The American cut's longer because they cut one or two scenes that was just too strange for the British, which is weird. But I'd say watch the longer cut. The longer cut's really good. So yeah, this is a must see. If you like films that are unique and different and have a different point of view, this is a definition of it. This is a terrific film, a great release, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with some more videos in a few minutes once I've set the next one up. So I'll see you then. Right, bye for now.